Up next, don't miss this. Hey y'all, and welcome to Malcolm Viren Hearing. My name is Malcolm, and today Senator Ted Cruz storms in swinging, accusing the Biden administration of staging a puppet presidency run by a pin-wielding machine, and claims Democrats stabbed their own president in the back like Caesar on the Ides of March. The only thing missing? A Shakespearean chorus to narrate the GOP's latest drama. Let's jump into the madness.
Thank you. Senator Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Biden administration may go down in history as the most brazen constitutional fraud in American history. A Potemkin presidency fronted by a failing puppet with staffers behind the scenes pulling the strings. This is not political hyperbole. The American people saw it with their own eyes during the June 2024 debate. Numerous times, Biden stood frozen behind the podium, mouth agape, eyes frozen and unblinking. When he did speak, his words were confused and disjointed. I said that night, this is the most consequential presidential debate in history because it will result in one of the two candidates being removed from the ballot. That was exactly right. And following that debate, the Democrats recognized the collapse. They pulled out their knives and took out President Biden like Caesar on the Ides of March. For all of their strutting about, protesting that they support democracy, not a one of them gave a damn about democracy when they pulled Biden off the ballot and dropped Kamala Harris in without a single Democrat primary voter voting for him. And you know what? Not a single Democrat is here today because not a single one of them gives a damn about the fact that they lied to the American people for 4 years. They knew. Every one of them knew that Joe Biden was mentally not competent to do the job. The White House press secretary, she knew when she stood in front of the American people and lied over and over and over again. And they're not here because they can't defend themselves. It wasn't a surprise. For 4 years, the White House hid President Biden from Republican senators, would not let him meet with us. He served 40 years in this body. We all know him. And they deliberately lied. And by the way, Jake Tapper had a bombshell book exposing the incredible scandal that Biden's mental decline was covered up by Jake Tapper. There's a Yiddish word, chutzpah, and that truly is chutzpah. How dare we lie and cover up what we all knew? Now, I have been asked literally 1,000 times by Texans, who was running the country? And I'm going to give you the most terrifying answer. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. And not a single Democrat here cares. The most telling proof of Biden's decline came with the signature of the president, the symbol of executive authority that was outsourced to a machine. Mr. Wold, you're a lawyer who served in the White House counsel's office. You understand the gravity of presidential action. Does the president's signature carry legal and constitutional weight under Article 2?
Yes.
Is the act of signing an executive order or signing a law or granting a pardon a delegable duty of the president?
So in that opinion in 2005 from OLC, they said essentially that an Autopen could be used by a subordinate, but the president's determination as to sign the document can never be delegated.
Can that authority be transferred to a staffer or a machine without the president's explicit authorization?
Never.
And if you look at the statistics are stunning. In 2021, President Biden issued 78 executive orders. None were signed with an Autopen. That first year of the presidency, Biden, I suppose, was relatively lucid, and 78 executive orders he signed by hand. The second year, however, we see the Autopen emerge. The first Autopen executive order was issued on July 15th, 2022. After that day, 100% of the executive orders issued in 2022 were signed by an Autopen. In 2023, Biden issued 24 executive orders. 16 were Autopenned. In 2024, Biden issued 19. 14 were Autopenned. In 2025, Biden issued 14 executive orders. Every single one was Autopenned. Mr. Wald, let me ask you as a legal matter, if there's a law that's passed both houses of Congress and it goes to the White House, and a staffer autopens signing that law without the president's authorization, is that law legally passed and signed into law?
No.
If an executive order is issued and a staffer autopens it without the president's authorization, is that executive order legally binding?
No.
And if a pardon is issued from the President of the United States and a staffer autopens it without the President's authorization, is that pardon legally binding?
No.
Under the Biden White House, the ceremonial song, Hail to the Chief, was effectively replaced with Hail to the Pen. And it was an outright assault on democracy. And every reporter covering this ought to ask, why doesn't a Democrat care? We heard about the moral responsibilities of a staffer. How about an elected senator who knows damn well that if we get into a war and Iran is preparing to fire a nuclear weapon at the United States, that the commander-in-chief is busy playing with his Jell-O and is not competent to defend ourselves? And every member of the cabinet, the chief of staff, the press secretary, and the members of Congress who lied about this on a daily basis with the press's complicity, they are all responsible for subverting democracy.
Senator Cornyn.
As Senator Ted Cruz wrapped up his fiery takedown of President Biden's use of the Autopen, the room was already heating up. And just when you thought it couldn't get any more intense,
Senator Mullen.
Talk about accountability. I wonder who was held accountable for the disastrous withdrawal out of Afghanistan, where 13 soldiers died and we left thousands of Americans behind underneath Secretary Austin's lead. Did one person get held accountable during that time? I don't know of anybody that got held accountable for Afghanistan withdrawal. But let's talk about that. And let's talk about the turmoil to which my colleagues on the other side of the dais wants to talk about. Let's talk about that turmoil. Underneath Secretary Austin, who was a general, by the way, you had the lowest morale measured in our military history. You had retention absolutely disastrous. You had recruitment that wasn't even meeting lowered standards that you guys lowered. But let me see the contrast now. We have the highest morale that's been measured in decades in the military. We have recruiting numbers that are exceeding expectations that we've had. We have our enemies that fear us once again, and our allies that love us because they can trust us. But that's not the narrative, Secretary Hegseth, that our Democrat colleagues want to draw. But how short-minded is your memory? It was just a few months ago that you were supporting a commander-in-chief that you guys were covering up for or flat out lying about. Who was in charge? And that was a commander-in-chief. Oh, but let's not talk about that. Instead, let's just point fingers at something that fits a narrative. You want to talk about war powers or the fact that during our reposturing in the Middle East against Iran, which would have never taken place if our colleagues on the other side would have held the administration accountable while they were giving billions of dollars back to Iran and knowing good and well during the briefings that they were actually trying to develop a nuclear weapon, but we turned a blind eye to that, and now the mess that was created by the Biden administration, this administration, or the Trump administration, and the leadership of Secretary Hegseth is simply trying to clean up. But forget about the past. Let's talk about this. Oh, let's talk about reposturing, by the way. And wasn't it Secretary of the Navy, Del Toro, that came to us and said that he was fighting the largest naval battle since World War II? Did anybody in this dais authorize that? That was his words, who sat right there where Secretary Hegseth was, and I laughed. And I said, I didn't think the Houthis had a navy, so why are we fighting a naval battle there? And did you guys complain about it? Did you guys say one thing about it? Nope. You just sat there. Because, hey, it didn't fit your narrative, but this one does. And anyone want to start talking about the National Guard and the Marines, didn't President Eisenhower deploy troops or federalized troops in Arkansas in 1957 and also deploy the 101st Airborne because the governor then refused to protect civil rights and personal property? Yep. What about President Kennedy in 62 and 63 that also did it because Mississippi and Alabama refused to do the same thing? And so since the governor at that time refused to protect citizens and the property, he federalized the National Guard. Oh, let's think about 65 too, because LBJ did the exact same thing. But that's history. But yet it's extremely important to the context of what you guys are claiming to be done here. But that doesn't fit the narrative that you guys want to put out there. History is history. Look back at it if you want to or not. But keep in mind, every time you're pointing fingers here, you got 3 fingers pointing back at you. Because the previous administration, you guys 100% turned a blind eye to and did nothing to hold them accountable. Nothing. So don't sit up here on the dais and pretend like you're trying to hold administration accountable now because you didn't for 4 years. You literally covered up for a commander-in-chief that was absent. Absent-minded and absent leadership. And you guys did absolutely nothing. Even your left-leaning media is saying it was the worst cover-up possibly in political history. Yet nothing from you guys. You all should be ashamed of yourself. Literally, you should be ashamed of yourself. I yield back.
Senator Markwayne Mullin jumped in with his own explosive challenge to the Democrats. Take a look. Senator Ted Cruz launched into a full-throated attack against President Biden, reviving long-debunked claims about his mental fitness and asserting that staffers, not the president, were running the White House. Leaning heavily on sensationalist rhetoric, Cruz weaponized the use of the Autopen, a long-standing and legally approved practice, to accuse the Biden administration of orchestrating a constitutional fraud. He claimed that Biden's executive orders had become illegitimate because some were signed via Autopen, ignoring that the president had authorized such use, as is standard practice. Cruz then accused Democrats of staging a coup by removing Biden from the ballot, a claim rooted more in drama than legal or political reality. As Cruz's conspiracy-laden narrative faded, Senator Markwayne Mullin entered the fray with his own combative performance. Instead of offering concrete oversight or solutions, Mullin rehashed grievances from the Afghanistan withdrawal and tried to paint the Biden administration as weak and directionless. In doing so, he conveniently omitted the chaos, broken alliances, and erratic leadership of the Trump years. Mullin claimed morale was at its lowest under Biden, yet contradicted himself moments later by touting current recruitment and global trust metrics, a testament to the recovery and renewed respect the military is gaining under Democratic leadership. Even more absurdly, Mullin criticized historic deployments of federal troops by Eisenhower, Kennedy, and LBJ, as if they were somehow comparable to modern military actions, forgetting these were landmark efforts to defend civil rights. He threw around historical references not to educate, but to deflect. His selective outrage and false equivalences aimed to smear Democrats for holding Trump-era policies accountable, all while dismissing the GOP's own negligence. Both Cruz and Mullin painted themselves as victims of a so-called media cover-up while peddling tired talking points and avoiding responsibility. But history and the voters won't be swayed by dramatic monologues when facts still matter. We've got more truth to unpack and more grandstanding to debunk. Stick around for the next segment, only on Malcolm Viram Hearing. I'm Malcolm. See you soon.